Right, rot time. I can do it.
Yeah, so as expected, you cut away here and then you find out what's underneath, and there are some nice little rotten bits here. There's a piece, this is where you get sort of the fun of P5s really, is that you've got multiple panels overlapping here. So you've got the front piece which is rotted through, then that goes on to another piece which comes up underneath it here, which would have been this panel here, and then there's another panel inside that then comes up behind even again, so you've actually got 3 layers here. And what I'm trying to do is not take all 3 layers out in one go, but actually just peel it back to see how it's put together and see how far back the rot goes. But I suspect all 3 are going to have to be done. Possibly might get away with the 3rd, but yeah, so just gradually trying to take it back without undoing too much in one go. I suspect it would have been spot welded in from the other side, but yeah, so I'm going to cut away. It's not just as simple as just replacing a piece of metal here, you see. Unfortunately, you've got to then find out what's behind it and behind that. So we've actually got one piece here and another piece there. I'll take the camera out for you closely. So obviously you've got the top piece, then you've got the inner skin here, and then you've got the interior frame skin here, which has got a hole in it, and I suspect that shouldn't be there. Although it could have been a hole there originally, but it looks round enough. But yeah, so I've got 1, 2, 3 layers, and we have got some rot around in there. It's a case of how to get into there to actually replace and repair that, and all the way along there. You can see there. So that then leads. Okay, so that then leads into here, under there. So actually, with the door off, door out the way, yeah, it's not too bad. I can get into that easily enough from underneath there. Okay, that's the plan then. So I'm going to probably maybe continue cutting this down a bit further, so I've got better access. Continue removing this piece off here, but trying to leave that internal structure as far as possible, because I think that's quite solid. I have cut into it a bit, but I can just weld that back up again. It's the beauty of welding and metal. Okay, I'll come back to it in a bit. Right, okay, so I've just trimmed a little bit more away, so yeah, so you can see more clearly now. Right, let me get a torch. Hang on. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so here you can see I have taken a little bit more, so I slit away that last little bit of the top skin, and you can actually see there the 3 spot welds that were there holding it on. So that would have been done originally. This is the next panel in, so this goes down, round, and actually up here again, so it's almost like it sort of comes up round, joined to the bottom. That's pretty blown out along the bottom there, so I think what I might do is continue this cut down here and down here, and actually just take out that whole piece in one piece. Then we've got the remainder of the top part here. I'm going to trim that away a little bit, but leave this in behind it because I think that's quite solid. And then I can start sort of fabricating in the necessary replacement pieces, and I might go and chop a piece off to get the right fit here. I'm going to actually go and chop a piece off spares car that Paul's got over in Banbury, so I'm going to head over there at some point in the next couple of days. So I'm now going to make now I can see what I've got to do there. I'm going to leave that for the minute, and I'm going to make a start on this bit here. So I know that so stick you there. I know that underneath here we've got rot. So You can see that's gone enough there. You can see the crack coming out all the way along here. It's solid about there. So all of that's fine there. And then the rot starts about there. And it continues forwards to about here. And then it's okay for the last little bit there. So I'm basically going to chop this here to here. Okay. So I'm going to remove that section from there to there, up to along the top rail here, and open that whole area up so I can get a proper eyes on it and see how bad it is. Put you back in here while I do that. So basically it's down here, there, and then it finishes about here. Okay. Slightly smaller cutter. This one's a bit better for getting into small, tight spaces. When I say that, the airline's going to get in the fucking way now, isn't it? Always something could do with without having that bit on the end of it, to be honest. But no, I can't use that. Let's go this way. Make it a bit sparky on me. So what I'm then going to do is I'm going to wire wheel this bottom edge and drill out the spot weld so I can remove that. So the spot weld didn't really need to be drilled because the whole piece is just going to fall away anyway. Right, so there you go, you get a feel for that, how bad that was. So that's the underneath there, that's completely gone. Now we're into that bit and we can see some rot in there, which doesn't surprise me. Because again, anything that water could sit on will be rotted out. So here we can see that's not so bad. Obviously you're then into the sort of structure there, however, as you can now see, we've now got that going on. So I've got to repair all the base, replate all of that going up there. So I'm probably going to end up cutting away a bit more of this in order to get access to that, because yeah, that needs to be done and done right. So I'll probably get that cut off, put it into 2 pieces, and then put it back in 2 pieces, or maybe join it on the bench and then put it back in as 1 piece. But in the meantime, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut away a little bit of that, get some access. I'm going to replace that anyway, so I'll cut away a bit of that. I'm going to leave that for the moment until I can get a better view of what's going on inside it. But at the moment, looking in there might be okay. I don't know yet. Anyway, it's all part of the fun. It's just the same as, well, similar to the other side, but not quite as bad. So there you go. So I carried on cutting. I wanted to get as much visibility. The good news is, on this side, I was about to say the good news is, but it's probably not the good news is. There's a little bit of rock around the bottom of there, leading into that. Obviously this is part of the structure here, so it's quite an important area. You've got a little bit of rust in there, a bit of rock coming through the bottom, and I can't really see that. Yeah. Okay, alright, so probably carry on cutting away a little bit more, but we're getting there. Main area I've got to repair along here, this base plate part here. That's quite decent metal there, so yeah, we'll see how that goes. Right, so I took the wire brush to it. Here we go, paper doily. So again, this was rusty but actually full of holes as well, so that leads all the way along there. So I need to cut this out up to here, probably along there as well, and then just weld in a new plate there. That's first, well, that's one step. Also remove the spot welds from here. Might be able to get away without. Nah, I'm going to cut that away. I'm going to remove the spot welds on this bit as well, and probably rejoin that to the other part that goes above it before putting it on. Then we've got the rust that's in under here. Now the only way I'm going to be able to get that to do that properly is by basically cutting away. I'm going to cut straight down here, go underneath, across, and back out to here. So I'm going to take off this bottom piece, remove that. I then also need to get down into along here and just cut that out. Whether I do that as a single piece or probably going to be more than 1 piece. What's making this side a bit more challenging to the other side is it's been attacked before. There's lots of welding and bits of steel welded in. It's all a bit higgledy-piggledy and not really as it would have been originally. So whereas in this area you've got sort of potentially overlapping maybe 3 or 4 different panels, it's now all a bit of a welded together mess. So I've got to try and work that out and try and get it back to being strong and as you know, make it rust proof at the same time. So I think what I'll do is I'll cut this out here, then I'm going to cut that out there, I'm going to chop out that whole piece and probably make up a new piece to go in there that folds underneath and joins where it would have joined before. So that's the next bit, I think. Who knows, until I get in there again I might find more. So first thing I'm going to do is try and remove that, get underneath it. Right, okay, so a bit more cutting away here. So I've cut another section out of this, which is the sort of chassis rail, if you want to call it that. That obviously then swoops down to the front of the car there. So on the other side this was quite clean inside. This isn't as good, but I don't think it's terminal, it's just surface rust. Can't really see it, can we? Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so just some surface rust. I'm gonna basically have to cut back. I might cut another section out here, go down, say, go across and down there and round underneath and then back up here again, and then effectively give me access so that I can properly repair that last couple of inches there as it comes towards us, because that looks pretty rotten. I want to make that strong, so that's the next bit. So I'm going to cut out a little bit more. I've cut away all of that down there. behind that's not too bad. It's like a sort of channel that runs in behind there, so I can rebuild that. This had been cut away and just kind of welded, and frankly hadn't been done properly anyway, because there's actually two layers here. You've got the inner wing, and then you've got the channel that goes behind it that would have been spot welded down here. Yeah, so I'm just going to have to make a piece that then joins across, and then would have been spot welded on there. But I need to remake the edge of that as well. So, yeah, this is a real fiddly fucker, this is. And it's not really being helped by the fact that when people have repaired it in the past, they've just kind of welded it into one big lump. Okay, so I've welded in the fillet just down here, this piece here, welded that back in, that's solid. So that's that repaired. Now I've got to effectively rebuild this internal structure here, which would have come along back to there. So I need a piece that's gonna, and also I've also cut back a bit further here and even here because it was getting a bit thin. So I need to just basically rebuild this and create that sort of box that goes around there, box that off, and then re-weld that back in. And then after that, just do a little bit more repairing around underneath here where it goes into the channel, and just continue that piece up further. I only went that far because I just wanted to be able to see where I was going next, but I can just make another piece to go from here to here, and then that will then fill that back in. So slowly getting there. Alright, okay guys, so just another quick update. So I've started building in another panel here. I know this I kind of cut out a cardboard template and kind of roughed it out, but sometimes until you actually get the metal on the car, I find it easier sometimes to just get it on there as a rough template and then start to work with it. So I've kind of welded it across the bottom and the side there temporarily. I'll clean all that up and do a better job of it, but it's just to hold it in place. And then I'm now sort of hammering it into the shape, because it kind of is actually got a sort of curve that goes down like a seagull, then up again, and then obviously it curves up and around here, and trying to do that off the car would have been actually quite difficult, so I'm just doing it on the car and utilising the sort of shape that's there to help me, because it's all a bit confusing to try and build this off the car, because it was previously welded and not very well done. So yeah, so there we go. So that's started, got enough there to then fold up and then stitch into there. So the idea is that that'll all be covered up, and then I can also build back up this piece down to here, so go from there down to join it, to fill in that gap just there, and just make a piece that goes there. So that's where I am at the minute, and I'm just going to keep going. Okay, so another quick update. So I've got all the welding done inside. It's not the prettiest, but you know, it's going to it's strong. That's all that matters in there really. So that's going to be closed up in a minute. I've sprayed rust proof primer in there, and then at a later date I'm going to inject built amber all the way down these frame rails, so it's going to get a proper dosing of cavity wax as well. So now the task is to bend that up, cut away any excess, and then weld that back into place into that sort of hole there basically. So yeah, we'll see you in a minute. Okay, a little bit more done now. So we've got the panel welded back up and sort of managed to beat it into shape once it was welded in, and you know, create a sort of a slight curve here. Welded it all underneath, seam welded it, or butt welded it. There's a few little bits to still finish off and holes to fill, but it's pretty much there. Just got to cut a little sort of tiny piece here and weld that in. That was just a bit rotten, so I've cut that out. So yeah, happy with that. And now I can move on to looking at this channel along bottom here, where that's all gone, blown out. So I'll cut all of that along there, and then make a piece of metal to go into there, fill in the bottom again with some fresh metal, and then I've got to look at all the bits I've cut out really and see what I can piece together to go back and repair where I need to those bits and rejoin them, and then look at welding that back in, and then I'll move on to the splash guard and, you know, probably undo some of the old crappy stuff that was done here. It's all a bit mad really, so I just need to I'm going to get rid of all of that bit there and then probably remake all that anyway. So getting there slowly. Sorry about the finger, by the way, I'm just holding my camera with my, I managed to run a grinder over that one, so I'm having to hold my fingers at funny angles. So hopefully I didn't just have my finger in front of the lens for the entire piece that I was just talking to you about there. Anyway, all done. Right, so quick update. I just nearly took my finger off with the grinder. I already mentioned that. So quick update. I've just filled that last little hole there. Sort of gave that a bit of a grinding. I mean, obviously all this is going to be within the box section, so rather than risk grinding the welds too thin, I'm leaving them slightly proud and not trying to make it look perfect. Well, that's my excuse anyway. So now I'm working on this piece here. So this has already been repaired once in the past. This looks like to me they welded in a strip here. Obviously you're straight through into the passenger foot area there, so what I'm going to do is effectively cut along the old repair, so cut a sort of along there to remove all of this, and then cut, probably I'm going to follow, you can see here where I pulled off, this was the lip of the piece that I cut out at the beginning, yeah, so that comes down here, in, and then down there, and is spot welded on here. But all of this across the top is quite thin, and I've got to try and fix the new piece that I'm going to make, or that I have made, into there. So I'm actually going to cut and follow the line of the old flange that was attached there, and cut that out, and then I'm going to fit this in, which I've just made. But before I can fit this in place, and there's still a little bit of fettling to do on this, but I've used the shrinker stretchers to get that sort of roughly in shape, which it roughly is at the moment. But before I can put that in, what I need to do is cut this piece out and then just make a flat piece that shape, the same thickness all the way along, because it's basically to rebuild that edge to then weld this onto, and then grind off any excess so you get a nice clean line. So that's what I'm going for now. Okay, so I've made up this strip, and basically what I'm going to do is cut out this piece here, so I'm getting right back to better metal from this feathery shit here. So I made that that strip, which now then sits in there. Okay, so I'm gonna butt weld that in place, so that'll be the new edge on which the next piece sits. I have realised that this isn't a previous repair. Now this is actually where the structure of the parcel shelf, you know, behind the parcel, the crash bar of the parcel shelf, you know, so that's all part of the bodywork. It's quite a strong strength piece. So I'm not going to muck around with that because it's solid. So rather than cutting along here, what I'm going to do is just cut along this bottom corner up until this finishes, then go up and continue to replace that there as one piece. So I'll show you that in a minute. First things first, though, I need to get this strip welded in place and ready to receive the next piece. Okay, so that's the piece welded in here to give me a nice clean edge to then mount the next piece. So now I need to chop away some of this and clean it all up. Okay, so I've welded in that piece there. Smoothed out the welds here because obviously you're gonna have that this piece spot welded along there, or I might just seam weld it to make it a bit more watertight. I haven't really bothered grinding these welds back because they're going to be all enclosed, and strength again is what I'm after here. Getting in there with the grinder is just going to be a bit fiddly, but I might give them a little dressing. Anyway, I'm going to then start on this outer piece and piecing that back together from the jigsaw of bits that I cut off at the beginning. Okay, there you go. Okay, so I've just shot blasted or sandblasted these, and I'm just going to start piecing this back together again. So those are the two biggest parts. So I've got them welded, started to tack them back into place, and then I've got to figure out where the rest of this lot goes. Okay, so I got a bit sidetracked yesterday. I went off and, well, not sidetracked, I went to go and get some bits off a car that Paul Preedy contacted me about on Facebook. Thanks, Paul. It's been very useful. I've had quite a few bits off it. But anyway, as you know, I was going to have to remake the base of this. Well, Paul let me attack his parts car with an angle grinder yesterday, and it had some much more sound bits of metal in it than I already had. So I managed to get that off quite cleanly. It was gone at this end, but that's fine. I've probably got enough left of mine to patch it up and make a solid piece. So that resolved having to make a new flange for that, which would have been painful. So yeah, so I've got a bit of nice panel to replace that. Also managed to get a couple of slightly better of those fillets, which I've painted up there after giving them a sandblast. Sandblasted that. Then I started to look at, before I put this all back on and start rebuilding this piece across here, I started to have a little look at here, this piece here. So we had a bit of rot in here, so I cut out a strip, and obviously you can see there where the flange is for the A-post, and then they've got basically the body panel that's inside it that it's spot welded to. I had cut out a hole here to examine why, well, to look at the plate that I needed to replace, and it was then that I also saw that I had a lot of rot in the two brackets that, for, well, the two top and bottom part of the bracket that form the cage effectively for the captive plate for the door screws, door hinge screws. So again, I cut the A-post out of this saloon. It is slightly different at the bottom to the coupe, so I can't use all of it, but there are some nice bits. So I managed to get this cage out in one piece, although I had to, actually it was in two pieces, but I welded it together. And now I've cut a hole big enough that I can slot this in and put this back in place, weld, and then I'll draw some holes, spot weld this in, and then that'll then hold the new the plate that I've also got. So I've taken that out, and then I've obviously drilled out the spot welds on that side, and then I can then reset this back into here somehow. It's going to take a little bit of trimming inside. There's still bits of the old bracket left on there, so I've got to get rid of those. Anyway, that's going to go back in there. I'm then going to make or either probably make, or I might just reuse the old bits because they were quite solid metal, and weld them back together again, and then remake the panel that goes over here so that I can then spot weld it all back together again. So yeah, so that's where we are. And then once that's done, I'm going to come round inside and I'm going to do a bit of work here using the bit that I cut out of his A-post. It starts to change as you get down to the bottom between a saloon and a coupe. You haven't got this swept corner so much. So I'm just going to take it down to there and just try and replace this little section here and weld in that other section. So that's going to happen, and then I'll report back. Right, so I've cleaned up the inside of the A-post there. This can now slot in, pretty straightforward. It just goes in like that. Everything lined up there, so you can see the plate there. I've got to spot weld it into place there, and then I'm going to make a new piece to go in, and that will have holes in for spot welds here, 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 along the bottom, and up this edge here, and then that'll all be spot welded into place into the A-post. However, at the moment I'm not going to do that because I think actually I need the access here to help me get to the bottom of the inside panel. I'm going to probably replace the bottom of the A-post with the sill because it's pretty ropey. I can't really justify trying to repair that. It's a strength area as well, so I'm going to leave that all open so that I can get in there and try and repair these holes. And basically this panel where it comes down and round underneath here. A bit of light on the situation. Yeah, there, so just need to make a piece that kind of covers or replace. I'm try and sort my light out. So make a panel that basically comes up and curves around and repairs those holes all the way up the side here, and that's going to be another piece that I need to make up Might well do that before I remove the sill, but I'll see if I run out of other jobs to do before I do the sill. Hi all, just an update. So where are we? I can't remember what I filmed last anyway. So all of this is done, spot welded along the bottom, butt welded along the top, butt welded down the back, butt welded there. I then got this piece back out off the shelf, which was what I cut away. Had a lot of rot sort of closer in, so I simply sliced it down there, then made up a piece to replace the damaged rusty metal with the new flanges on it. I decided not to spot weld, but just sort of seam lap weld them slightly down here. It's not the prettiest, but it's strong again. It's just got to be quite careful when you're welding to this metal up here. It's solid, but it's, you know, if you start getting too much heat into it, you get problems. So that's all good, nice and tight and sealed. I've got a couple of little holes there I need to fill, which is fine. I can do that. And also there was a small section down at the bottom. So basically from here down to here was rusty. So again, made up a replacement piece and then let that in. Now I'm just looking at this. So I was going to leave this until I pull the sill off, but actually I don't see any reason why not, to just get that done. So I'm going to make up a panel. Well, I have made up a piece to go in, which is over here. So I drilled spot welds out down there to release the piece that was spot welded to the A post, and I cut back down here, cut it back all the way down there, so just past the flange of the A post. So I'm going to butt weld it down there and then butt weld it along there and across the tops and the bottom, and then I'm going to spot weld it through and get the strength back into it again. So that's my current job. Okay guys, so another update. Where are we? So I got this piece welded in. Again, just needs good grinding now. But that's all welded there. I've got a spot weld here, but I'm just waiting to get a bigger clamp to go around the A post and clamp that in place and spot weld that all the way down. A little bit of warpage, but I took my time over it. And likewise on the inside. So that's all now welded in. Obviously I've got a few little hedgehogs to deal with down here with bits of welding wire. Fortunately it's a hazard of welding thin metal onto old thin metal. But at least you know you're getting through it and penetrating it. So that's done. Now the next thing I'm going to do, and I've sort of ummed and ahed a bit about this, but I've come up with this sort of best bet, I think. So I've obviously got some rust here, and then more rust down here, all the way down there, and then it sweeps down into the curve at the bottom and onto the sill. So I'm not going to try and repair this bit here until I've got the sill off, but obviously all of that's pretty shonky, and I'll probably make a piece that comes up here and goes over there and over there, and then sort of follows that line down to the sill. So I'll make that up when I've got the sill off, and I can concentrate on it. However, I am going to focus on this bit here, starting from where my finger is and going down to that line at the bottom there. So what I did is, as you know, I cut the A posts out of a saloon, which were very good, and I've just been carving them up and using them for bits. So I've just cut this piece out with the 90-degree bend, which goes down to the bottom of the U channel, which is where that sort of hard rubber sits to fix the fur flex onto and stuff. So that will replace that, and then I've just got to cut the old stuff out and then butt weld that in, and that takes care of a lot of the rust right down to that line. And so that just leaves us with the bit at the bottom to sort out. So I'm going to get that welded in a minute once I've cut away the old stuff, and then I'll show you how that ended up looking. I'm a bit nervous, it might look shit, but we'll try. Okay, so change of plan. Having just cut out that section, I've decided it's going to be much easier to keep going and to cut all the way down there and across here, and then basically I'm going to sort of make a tongue that comes along to here. It's going to be quite interesting to see. I'm probably going to leave it disconnected. I'm not going to weld it obviously around here, because obviously it's coming out anyway. But because this has had sills before, I suspect that's where some of this might be a little bit sort of more like, for example, it's seam welded along the top here, which is not the usual. You normally have plug welds there. So yeah, so I'm gonna make up a piece, because I think now's a good time to do it, and because I can use the line of that, and I can see the remains of what would have been there before there. So I'm going to make up a piece, and even if I don't fit it now, at least I've cut it out, shaped it, and got it ready to go in at a later date. I just think that's going to be easier to do with this piece out, but we'll see. I'll probably change my mind again in a minute. Okay, so what I've decided to do is to make a template. Start off with the cardboard, and basically that will go in there. This is obviously where it will be the top of the sill, so just a flap here that can be slightly sort of fitted and adjusted if necessary to weld to the top of the sill, and I think that will do. So now I've got that made, I'll just flatten it out and cut that out. Right, so using my trusty bit of railway track, quite handy, and my vise, I've managed to sort of bash this into some sort of shape, and of course plenty of hammering. So the idea is that I'm not going to put this on now obviously, because it's I've bent this further up than it needs to go just to get out of the way. So this will sit in there. Once I've cut out the old stuff, then that should sit a bit more flush into that, and then yeah, that's right. I think that'll sit on top of the sill then, and just get spot welded onto the sill, and that creates your sort of channel, the rest of the channel coming down into that bottom corner. Probably a bit of adjustment once it's on there, but it's close enough that I can now just chuck it up there, get back onto welding this panel in. Might as well do that now, because I think there's nothing really stopping me, so I'm going to have a crack at that. That was a real faff. So that wasn't much fun. So I'll just take that out of the way. I've welded that in. It's really shonky at the minute, but I will clean it up a bit and probably fill some holes. But I've had to be very careful not to build up too much weld in here, because it's going to get really difficult in there to try and grind that all back, because obviously I've got to get the rubber piece in there. I've got a bit of a disaster at the top here, and it was only halfway through. It was only after I cut this piece that I realised that this U-channel is not part of the A-post. Well, it is, but there's a second skin inside, and if I just spot welded and removed this piece with that U-channel, I could have had all of that U-channel there and then just spotted it through from here. So it would have been far less hassle than trying to butt weld effectively down there. But I've done it. It's not the best, and I need to do a lot of grinding and cleaning up on all of this. But you know what? It's solid. It'll live to fight another day. So, and once the rubber piece is in, you're never gonna see it again anyway. So there you go. This is just temporarily blobbed there just to hold it in place. Obviously all of that's going to be cut out, and then once that's cut out and this piece is fitted, then you know that'll tidy up the bottom end there, and yeah, it'll look a lot better. So there you go. That's where I'm at. So I've reached a bit of a point now where, other than giving this all a good grinding, I need to either man up and get on with doing the sill, which I've been putting off. But having said that, I've quite enjoyed. It's been quite useful getting all this done and getting my welding head back on again, because I hadn't been welding for a while since I did the stag. There is possibly a little bit of work to do on that one, but it's far less. I don't have a problem here, for example. In there is a bit of rot, but it's not sort of destroyed. Just needs to be got in there with maybe some anti-rust stuff and cleaned up a bit. So that's where I'm at with that. And I'm hoping the other sill is salvageable. It's only got a few holes on the inside, but who knows? Until you cut a bit of it away, you're never going to really know. So that's where I'm at. I'm going to take all these videos now. It's about 3 weeks worth of work, and I'm going to just splice them all together to hopefully create about a 20-minute video showing my efforts since I started welding up on the Rover. And then at that point I'm now going to start thinking about getting the car on jack stands and leveling it up and getting the door back on so that I've got the ability to check the door gaps and try and get those a bit better, because they weren't great, because there is a bit of sag, I think, certainly a bit anyway. There you go. Actually, the beauty of having lots of different tools is, and air tools especially, is that little finger sander I bought has proved its worth. Got in there nice and cleanly and tidied that up. So I'm going to push the car at the garage tomorrow, grind away all these welds, clean everything up, and then I'll be done with that bit of welding. I think I might do something else soon.